Hi, Sandra. There it is. Sorry, I'm trying to find myself on here. Hi, Gail. Good morning, Denise. Hi, Patricia. How's everybody doing today? Hope everyone is well. I have a couple little things to share with you guys. I wanted to share this because I know some people had asked me about this, so I'm going to share. Hopefully, my downline Suzanne is watching. Hi, Janet. Good morning, Judy. How's everybody doing today? Finally, raining Kentucky. Same thing here, Jennifer. It is raining here. Supposed to be some really bad storms later, so. Hi, Rhonda. Thanks for joining. I'm glad you made it. I'm going to grab a couple of things. What did I get here? Oh, okay. So much stuff here. I did not share any of my pre-order with you all. So I wanted to show just a few things. Darn it, if I can find them, where are they? Here it is. I know some people have asked about the mercury glass. So this actually was Linda Cullen's card. She shared on her blog, and I actually used this as a card that we made in class on Friday. So you can see that shiny paper back there. That's that mercury glass. It's a mercury glass acetate. It actually comes in 2 different prints. So I'll show them to you because I know some people weren't sure if it was silver or if it was gold, but I think the way they finished it, it looks a little different. So this is silver. It is silver, so there's a piece of white behind it so you can see the pattern a little better. But it does have a shine to it. And then the other side is shiny as well, so you could use either side. So that's more of like a crackle pattern. And then they have one that's more like an acid splash, almost like a pockmark. So there's that one, if you can see that a little bit better on the white, with the white in the background. So I thought that'd be cool too, even just to put some white behind it. So it is very thick. It feels to me thicker than window sheet. I'm not sure if you could emboss on this. I'm really trying to, I keep asking Stampin' Up to have some thick acetate. That way we can emboss on it because I've seen a lot of really neat techniques with that. But I just used a little strip for the card, and everybody really liked this. It was really neat. I even, you can kind of hide the dimensionals or like the glue dots or whatever it is you attach it with. I used liquid glue for this, but you can hide it really well because you have a lot of different pieces, I guess, depending on what part you use. So that is pretty cool, just in case you haven't seen that. So we made the other day, I think we had 8 people, and I just used little strips. So I only used about probably a 4-inch strip. So that's pretty cool for being able to get your money's worth out of it. One other thing I wanted to show you is that I did put some copper on the back of it. So if you can see, this is just the flip side. I put copper on it. So you could see, you could add color behind it. And you could do it on either side. It doesn't matter. And then what I did was I actually put some of the ice glitter on it just to see if it would stick. And it did stick pretty well considering. So there's just the copper on there. So there's that. So I have like a couple little pieces of that left. So I figured I would save it and show it. It was really cool. Oh, they did emboss on it? Oh, thank you. Thanks for telling me that, Janet. So that's good to know. So I'll have to do that. I'm going to have to try that off camera, though, because I want to make sure I get it right. That way I don't actually burn it. This is one of the other cards that I made. This actually was just a case out of the catalog. So it's pretty cool. Very simple card. It does have, I will say simple because you have big DSP layer. There's a little layer of DSP. Have a little bit of embellishment with the seaweed. And then I just stamped the knots. Actually stamped them twice, and it doesn't even really matter if you don't line it up well because you can put your sentiment on top of it. And then I just added in my little ship wheel there. I tied it in with the ribbon, so that was pretty simple. And then the other card that I created, oh, you didn't miss much. You didn't miss much. I'm just chatting. I made this bridge fold card because one of my club members, Gwen, really wanted a bridge fold card. So we made this one. It does fold flat. This will fit in a regular, of course I don't have one with me, but you can see it fit in this. So it does fit in a regular envelope, but it stands up. The only thing I suggested was maybe layering this over top because I think sometimes if you put this over it might give a little finished look, but that's why I added that little strip there. So, and the back is a little busy for me after I did it. I wasn't sure if I loved it or not, but I did use the new metallic, what is it called? Delicata metallic ink, which is really cool. I actually colored this pumpkin, believe it or not, with Grapefruit Grove and terracotta tile. I just did light and then dark, and then I filled it back in with the light. I stamped it in pumpkin pie. However, I didn't realize this until after the fact that I put the apple stem onto the pumpkin and the apple leaf, ding dong. I'm telling you, sometimes I wonder about myself. I just don't know sometimes what I do, but this was a really easy card to create. Very simple. I will do a post for this one, and I might actually do a different one and do the apple. But this, believe it or not, paper, this is Halloween paper. So I just wanted to show you guys that really quickly. Like, where is it? I know I had it out here. I used 2 whole sheets of this, but actually the other side is bats. So you could also do bats if you wanted to. But this just goes to show you there's a lot of patterns on the Halloween paper that you can use after Halloween just for kind of like everyday cards. This would also make a really nice card if you wanted to do something maybe for like an anniversary card, black and white, 50th anniversary, or a thinking of you, a sympathy, if you have like maybe a milestone birthday, you could do like a over the hill card or something like that. So I think that would be a really, really cool idea. So there's that. The Halloween paper is really pretty, but there's also, I shouldn't say pretty, it's really creepy, but it also has some really cool stuff to it as well. You could also do this one. This would be a great background for fall. This is a crushed curry background on white, so you could do that for a fall card if you wanted to. But I think this is one of the coolest ones, the maze. That would be really great if you make a scrapbook for Halloween. It's really cool. You could even put like some little, you could cut these little people out because they do have dies. So you could cut some of these little people out. Can't find them right now, of course. And you could have them following along on your trail. But they do have some really cool Halloween paper. And it actually is backed on white this year. Thank goodness, because that vanilla, I don't know about you guys, but it is hard for me to use vanilla as a Halloween background for some reason. It's probably just me, but anyway, so those are the cards we made. And then we also made one of the diagonal cards on Friday, so everybody liked that. Not that diagonal, the scoring cards. We did just the straight score lines. So I'm going to show you just a couple things I was working on, because we do have some new masks, stencils, whatever it is you want to call them, in the catalog. This would be a great one for Halloween or fall with the trees. And then we have dots. Oh, one of the dots is still in this one. There we go. Dots. And we have kind of this filigree one, which again, that would be really nice for Halloween because you could do something with it. And I want to show you what I did with this one. This is so, I'm trying to get it so you can see if it's sparkly, but it's not wanting to reflect it. But anyway, I did this with Shimmer spray, where I just put a drop of, was it Rococo Rose? Yeah, I think. Rococo Rose in a spritzer. And then what I did was I lined this up originally, and then when I was done I let it dry, and then I just moved it over just a hair and I resprayed it, so it has a gray shadow there. I don't think it's showing up very well. It probably looks blurry, but it looks really cool in person. Plus it's super duper shimmery, so that one would be great for a Halloween background. And then I have this other one. This could be multiples. You could do leaves, you could do flowers, you could do fish. Put like a little eye and a tail on some of them if you wanted to. So that would be a perfect little fish there if you wanted to do even like a skeleton fish. But this one I did a couple different things. I just did an ombre look with the same color ink. So I used, this is Pear Pizzazz, and then I used Garden Green, and I just made it darker at the bottom, lighter at the top. And then I did spritz this with Shimmer. I did another one where I did some ink blending first onto Whisper White. So I did a little ink blending, and then I went over the whole entire thing with dark. So that was a couple different layers. This is another example of moving the mask around. So I did one with really dark, I believe I used basic gray, and then I moved it over just slightly, and then I filled it in with, I think that was gray granite that I used for that one. So I thought that would be kind of something Halloween-y you could always add to the background as well. So those are just a couple of things that I was fooling around with. So I thought what we can do is, so we have these 4 new masks. These will be available September 4th. Unless you want to sign up as a demonstrator, be part of my team, then you can order these as part of your pre-order in your kit. You can order anything you want, and we do have the special that runs through the end of the month. You can choose $155 for $99, plus you get a $10 coupon for the month after. And then we also have these 4 masks that are in the catalog currently. So we have the clouds, the mandala, the bricks, and the little squares. And I just want to show you one thing, because I'm sure you can probably see these. These are pretty gnarly. Like, they have white paste on them. You definitely want to clean these up. This one has sparkle stuff all over it, but it does not inhibit it working. It still works perfectly fine. So if you ever notice that like stuff is stuck on it, it does not affect the use of it. It still works perfectly fine. They definitely clean up faster if you do it right away, but it doesn't change the use of it. So just as an FYI. So what I thought we could do today is, I thought we could do a couple things. I do have my embossing paste out because I figured at least we could add something to that. I want to show you this just once. We'll get to a point eventually where your paste is not salvageable. So if you get your paste and you open it and it's still slightly gummy, you can add water to it and mix it and it will come back to life. But when it gets to this point here where you can see it's very crumbly, that kind of is really the end of life for it. So I went ahead and opened up a new one just to save myself a little bit of aggravation. But if you keep instead, once you remove the foil on it, so this one is fresh, you can see it looks juicy. But if you keep even a piece of like saran wrap when you close it up over top before putting the lid on, it will stay wetter longer. And then this is the shimmery paste. This one's still pretty soft as well. This has just a shine to it. So if you keep it closed up really tightly, and then every once in a while go in and either add just a little bit of water and stir it, that definitely helps to keep it usable for longer. So just a couple tips there. And let me just wipe up this little mess I just made. And my desk has been clean since last Friday. I haven't made anything since the stamp club party, which is a miracle for me in itself. So I thought what we could do is we could fool around with this a little bit. We could add in some black backgrounds. I even thought we could add in some of this. We could do some of this. I'm going to do a couple of them maybe with embossing paste on this. So what we'll do is we'll do these, maybe do one with Versamark. And then I apologize. I don't know what is up with me today, but my nose is running. So I'm sorry for all the, I'll try my best not to sniffle. We have copper, golden glitz, and silvery shimmer. These are the 3 new pigment inks. I'm sure you've seen Gail use them. I know she's used them a little bit on there as well. These are pigment inks, keep in mind, so they do take time to dry. So whatever it is you do with them, whether you sponge them, roller them, dauber them, direct ink, they do take time to dry. So just keep that in mind. So what I thought we could do is, I have some paper here. So I have 1, 2. I'm going to grab 2 more. And I thought we could kind of fool around with a couple different things on the background. Even if we do like partial for something and then we end up cutting it later, we can fool with something for the background on these, see what we make out of it. And then we can always formulate a card at another time. But I thought that would be kind of fun. So let me move this out of the way. I have a couple ideas of what we can do for some of the pops of color background, but I'm going to see just in general first what we're going to do. So since I have this one out, I'm going to do this one first. And we will do this with an embossing. I'm sorry, not an embossing. Yeah. We'll do this with a Versamark pad, direct to paper with the mask. So I'll kind of just like slightly line this up here at the bottom, just for sake of kind of keeping it straight. And then what we'll do is we'll put embossing powder on it. So how about if we'll do this one just for the sake of keeping it visible. We'll do clear for the first one. So we'll do clear embossing powder with that. And then we'll move on from there and see what else we get. So I'm going to go ahead, and I still did not bring up the correct straps for this. So I'm going to turn this on in the background just so it heats up. In the meantime, I'm going to just take my pad and I'm going to direct to ink stamp it. direct ink pad to paper, stamp it. And hopefully I'm holding it down so it won't move. You might want to use a piece of tape. Hopefully I'm not moving that. We'll see. No, that looks pretty good. You might want to tape this down. I'm going to set this on the side because I do want to wipe this off. And then I'm going to just grab my clear embossing powder. And that Versamark pad is a little bit stained. So if you notice that it has a little bit of a tint to it, it's just because mine has probably been inked in before. But not enough that it bothers me to get rid of it. Just go back in here. Just want to make sure I got the bottom. Alright, so there's that. I'm just going to set that over here. This is probably one of my lowest jars, the clear. And even though there's not very much in it, it still has plenty of stuff left. So, lots to do. I am going to grab just a baby wipe. And I'm just going to wipe this off because in case I got any ink on this, I'm going to wipe this off as well. And even though I'm doing this now, I still will go downstairs, hopefully afterwards, and rinse this off. And then I just have my shop towel here. You can see when I wiped it off, I did not clean off the green the other day, so I'm really good at giving out advice, but not so great at taking it. Alright, so now I'm going to grab my heat tool, and just for the sake of not burning my fingers, I'm going to pick this up with my reverse tweezers. See if I can grab it. And I'm just going to heat this all over. And just in case you can't tell, it gets shiny. So you can see this side is shiny and this side is still very, kind of looks like salt crystals. So it does get shiny when it is actually heated. You can do both sides if you want to make sure your paper doesn't wrinkle. But quite honestly, once it's hot, it actually goes pretty quickly. So that's the great part about preheating your heat tool. It's the even better part about using the Boss if you actually have your connections so it will stay on there. But I need to get, apparently all of my zip ties are 8 inches, and I must need them to be a little bit longer. There's one more spot here I want to get. Sometimes it's hard to see the embossing when I'm doing a video because I don't think I'm looking at it quite as well as I should. But anyway, you can see it's shiny. When it's shiny means it's actually heated. So you have that. So that's cool. You could do this in itself. You could do this on, so if you did like, for example, if you did clear on green, it's going to make a green shiny background. Or what you could do is you could stamp with Versamark first and then go over it with the same color. Now I know this isn't the same color, but you could go over it with the dark color and then you would have a tone on tone, which would be really cool as well. So I'm going to give this just a second to dry off. And then what we'll do, because I haven't used the gold yet, so we'll use that one just to make it a little exciting. And also, with these inks, I will tell you, they do wash out of your chamois very easily. I'm not 100% sure about the sponges yet because I haven't used them enough, but I'm pretty sure you can rinse them out fairly well. So I'm going to just dip into some gold. You can see it doesn't take too much. And we'll just do this on top. I must have missed a little spot over there. And it would be better if you did this with a paper towel after the fact because it kind of can wipe off the background a little bit better. but I'm just going to use the towel that I have up here. So if you wanted to be a little bit more, obviously you can see there's a few spots that I didn't either fully emboss, so the ink wasn't fully heated, or I might not have inked that spot as well as I thought I did, which is fine. So I'm just going to go over it just to give a little bit darker. We'll fill in a couple of those little smudgy spots. Make it unique. Okay, so I'm gonna close this up. So again, this does stay wet for a little bit. And I'm going to grab my towel again, and I'm just going to wipe off. And what it will do is it gets all of the ink that's on, so you can see that on there. It gets all of the ink that might be stuck onto the embossing powder that's been heated. It wipes it off. So then everything will really shine nicely. And you have kind of that gold, almost looks like a gold emboss resist, even though the ink is over top of it. So that's a really simple background to be able to work with. So what you could do with that is we could do that. So that's one there. And I'll show you maybe some stuff we're going to cut out after the fact and work with it on that. So I'm going to take one of the old ones. I'm going to use this one. And actually, let me see. What was the other? So I have that. That was the gold. Move this over. So another thing you can do is you could take direct ink to paper. So we could do this one of two ways. You could use the pad, or instead, so what I'm going to do for this one, I'm going to pick 3 inks. It's funny because when I look at my sponges and I think to myself, did I clean this? But I know some of them have to have been cleaned because they are so filthy. I would hope there is no way I possibly would have left them the way I think I left them. And this one I'm going to make it centered because I don't really want it to have the edge border. So I'm going to kind of try to make sure it's centered in there at least a little bit. And then what I'm going to do for this one is I have some frog tape that I've obviously used before, and I just stick it to the front of the container. So let me just straighten this out just a little bit. And what you could do if you wanted to is you could put a little piece here, kind of press it down, and go like that, and like that. That should be good enough for now. All right, so for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 3 specific colors. I'm going to use Blueberry Bushel, Granny Apple Green, and I'm going to use Bermuda Bay, just to try these. So I'm going to do these 3 with sponges. I'm going to start with the technically lightest color, which I know is still a little dark, but I'm going to start with Granny Apple Green. Then what I'm going to do is just sponge this, and I'm kind of just going random. I'm not really going for anything specific. You want it darker, you can make it darker. All right, so there's one. I'm going to do with Bermuda because that's the lightest, next lightest one. Right, and then Blueberry for the last. And remember, when you're doing these, if you're going to transition to the other color, it will combine and make a different color. So your original color is going to be the Blueberry Bushel, but then as you go to green, you're going to have more of a blue-green, and as you go to the Bermuda, you're going to have more of a... Bermuda's a hard one because it's making almost like an indigo. Even though it's a blue, it's more of like a green blue. I know these are very, very technical when I'm describing all of this stuff I'm talking about, but you can get your extra colors. So let me just lift this up and I'm going to show you what I mean. So then you'll have these little things. Oh, I missed one little spot over here. Let me finish this one because I do want to make sure it's out to the edge. And if you don't like something, you can always go back. But you have this, which is a super cute background. Different colors, right? Oops. Tape that down too. I forgot. Try not to get my fingers on it. So there's that, which is really cool. Now, one other thing, and I haven't done this before, so I'm going to try it. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to wipe this off so I don't make too much of a mess. But I want to try something different with this. And I may go back and make another one after the fact. So I'm just going to wipe this off. As you can see, comes off pretty well with the baby wipes. And then what I'll just do is just hit the other side. I'll wipe that up. Hit the other side just a little bit. And then again, I have my kind of catch-all cloth here. And just wipe this off. This tonic mat is definitely getting a workout today. But you could use this over and over again. But what we're going to do, I'm going to move that over. Put this down here. I'm going to hit this really quick with my heat tool just to dry it. Make sure it's dry. Because whenever you're moving from one step to another, you do want to make sure that at the very least your ink is dry. Even if it's not pigment ink, you want it to be dry. All right, so I'm not going to do this all over, but just for the sake of doing it, here's what I'm going to do. So you can see, if you wanted to, you could line this right back up where you were, right? You could have your stuff all lined up, but instead, we're going to make it just a little bit askew. So I'm going to go down and over just a little bit. I'm going to re-put this down. And now I'm going to do this with the regular, because I'm going to sprinkle some of this on top of it just to see what it looks like. So this is just the regular embossing paste. I'm not going to do a lot, just a little bit. But what I'm going to do is, and you know, I was contemplating, let me stir this up just a smidgy first, because I was contemplating, I'm having two different thoughts here. My two thoughts are this. What I can do is, I was saying that we were going to finish this with something black, but I thought we could actually mix in a little bit of color to this. That way it would show up a little bit more. But I'm thinking if we do that, I would do like a light gray or another complementary color. So I'm going to see, what do you guys think? I'm going to grab a block just in case you think we should add some color to it. What I'll do is I would just put a little bit of this on a block because I don't want to use a whole ton of it. Cover this back up. So we can either add color to this now and then also add the pop of black. So we could do like a little bit of basic gray. We could do gray granite. That way it would be lighter. We could do... This is a Tonic Easy Clean Matte, this white one here. And it is not Stampin' Up. No, you can get it on Amazon. Or you can get it from Tim Holtz. Or you can get it on Simon Says Stamp. Gray. Okay, thanks, Gail. That makes me feel better. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go with gray. I'm going to do a smoky slate. I'm just going to add a drop. Gail must be thinking what I'm thinking. Let's hope. Let's hope it turns out the way I'm thinking it is. So I just have a drop of it in there. I'm just mixing this up. So your blocks are good for multiple things. Mixing mediums. And actually, I'm going to put a little bit more. That way it's a little bit darker and it just doesn't look dirty. So that's one more drop. Okay, and it also will have a variegated color because you really are never going to be able to get it to mix perfectly, which is fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape this off of my block and I'm just going to go across just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to just go across the middle. I'm not even doing the whole thing. So I'm avoiding the edges. Okay. So there's that. One thing about the embossing paste, you do want to make sure you clean this off promptly because the longer it's on there, the harder it is to get off. So have like a towel or a wet tray of like warm water with soap in it. Same with your block. The faster you get it off, the easier it is to clean it. You can scrub it with a fingernail brush if for some reason it doesn't work out, but it will come off. Just takes more work if you don't do it right away. So then I'm going to lift this up because I do want to also clean off my table and my mask. Pull this down. So then we have this over top, right, which looks pretty neat. So I'm going to set this on the side just for a minute so I can wipe this up. And then put this down here. I'm going to clean the rest of this. And I put one underneath this time because I was finally using my noodle. That way if I'm pressing it onto something underneath, it will come off. Again, these are all fine. They do have some staining on them, but it does not affect their use, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Okay, so I'm going to bring this back in, and I'm actually going to bring this over for a second. This is just my multi-use, and I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of this on top, just across the center. I don't know what's going to stick, so since it's still wet, I'm just going to give it just a second to sit there, so you have like a little bit of sparkle. For some reason, all of a sudden, Xanadu is in my mind. I don't know if anybody else likes that movie or not, but that was one of my very favorite Olivia Newton-John movies ever. I don't know, these aren't even Xanadu colors, but anyway. So I'm going to just kind of tip this just to let the extra fall off. Now this obviously is going to take a little bit of time to dry. So again, if the gray is too much, you could also have done it with white if you wanted to, but you have like that layered background look. This is not photographing as nicely as I want. It probably looks very dark. Let's see if I can bring this over just a little bit. But it really is neat. It's very gloomy here today. It's rainy, so it's not as bright as it usually is. But you have your regular color on the top and the bottom. You have that little bit, and this will take some time to dry. Like I said, I just added those little ice crystals. I think these will be super adorable too. One other thing you could do is, and they don't have to necessarily be for Christmas. So that was my other point, is you don't have to have these for Christmas. But you could even heat some stuff up with clear embossing. And then while it's still warm, dump these on them, and it's going to be crystally looking. So that's just another cool idea of what you can do there. So that one I'm going to move, once I put this away, I'm going to actually put that on the side so it can dry without being disturbed. Because, you know, if there's one thing I do, it's always knocking into stuff when it's still wet. So there's that. So again, we did this one. This was a clear emboss resist, and we used the gold pigment ink for that. That's the new Delicata gold ink. And it's new to Stampin' Up. I'm sure it's not new to some of you guys if you've used it before. And then this one has the couple different things on it. We have the 3 inks, and then we added some embossing paste and a little bit of the ice stamping glitter, which was fun. So these tools do come in a 3-pack, but you could use, like, if you have take-out knives, or you know how you're always getting or forks and stuff from fast food places, you could use those instead. That'll be just as easy. All right, so the other one I wanted to show was, let me see. All right, so for this one, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do a different one. Let's go with the dots, just for the heck of it. We'll just do the dots. Let me grab another piece of this. So I'm going to do these reverse. I'm going to do 2 different ones, and then we will cut something out and put these together. So for this one, we'll just do the dots. And again, I'm kind of just like slightly centering it on here. And hey, Marlene. Hey, better late than never, right? All right, so I'm going to just put these 3 away for now. And what I'm going to do with this one now is, I'm actually going to do this in black, believe it or not. And look, I have paste, dried paste stuck on my hand. So I'm going to do this with black. And just for the sake of saving time, I'm going to just go direct to paper if I can. Nope, look at that. Doesn't go. So good to know, because this is not a squishy pad. Now, if you had the other black ink pad, the archival ink that we had, that is a little bit fatter. So that one might work. I'm just going to keep this out to clean. What I'm going to do is just grab the other side of this. And I can even use some of the ink that's already on there. So this doesn't have any squish to it, so it's not going to fill your ink in like the other pads would if you did direct. Probably could. Probably should make sure before I tell you something that may or may not be true. All right, so there is Memento ink. This is a pretty quick drying ink as well. So I'm just going to lift this up, see what that looks like. So it is a little bleedy, and that could have been from the way I was pressing, dependent. So what I'm going to do, since it's a little bleedy, is I'm going to fix it. So you can see here, it's a little bit bleedy, right? So what we're going to do is, we're going to take our dots again. We're going to line them up the way they were. We're going to find which one looks like it has the most bleeding, and we're going to just shift a little bit down. So I'm going to go down a little bit. Then I'm only going to use what I still have on here. I'm not going to re-ink, and I'm just going to create a little kind of lighter shadow like a half moon, and just spreading out the ink that's still left on the mask. This is definitely going to give you fingers to look like you were digging in the garden, so beware with the black ink. All right, so let's see what that looks like. So that is a little darker than I probably wanted. So you have a little bit more of a, not really a double dot necessarily. It's not like a half moon dot. So probably would have been better if we would have gone with black and then a lighter one. So let's try this again. I'm gonna wipe this off. Dry this off. And we'll try it because it has two sides, and I know it does have a little bit of dots on it, but we'll see what looks better. So let's try this again. See, I make the mistakes so you don't have to. So I'm going to ink this up again. And I'm going to try just to have a little bit lighter of a hand this time, because I think I was pressing a little hard last time. So maybe it was going underneath. There's a good chance that, I know I had some dots on the other side of this. There's a good chance that maybe we're covering them up. You never know. And I'm going to just do the center a little bit darker. Okay, there's that. All right, and then I'm going to get out gray granite. Okay, let's see what that looks like. That looks a little better. So I still do have my little smudgy spots over here, but that's okay. We can always cover that up with something. So if you have your circles lined up again, we'll go down a little bit this time to the other side. Okay, and then I'm going to use the other side of this one. So this is gray granite. Probably could have helped if I would have followed my own advice and dried this one first. That probably would have been a little smart, because I did say that earlier. You want to make sure that your layers are dry prior to adding another layer of color to them. So we'll see if this does the same thing. Then I should have followed my own advice. There you go. Okay, so this looks a little bit better. So this actually does have a shadow. So there's that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this on the side so I can wipe this off. Definitely going to have to thoroughly clean out these sponges later, I can tell you that. Okay, so there's that. And my fingers are super duper disgusting. All right, so. Okay, I'm using a mix of new and old, Deborah, if you're just joining. A mix of new and old. So for this one, this is the side we ended up deciding looks nicer because it has the light gray shadow versus this one that just kind of looks blobby. So we have that one. And then what we'll do is we're going to cut something out for this one. But I wanted to do one final one, and I'm going to try to wipe my fingers off real quick on a baby wipe so I hopefully don't contaminate anything else before we go to the final card, since it's a fresh black. And I think the other thing with my mat, why it's not coming as clean as it was, is because I've used so many mediums on it, and I probably have used some stuff to wipe it off that I necessarily shouldn't have. Hey, Suzanne. Hey, so I was sharing the mercury acetate, so you have to go back when we're finished and rewatch the video. I shared both sheets, that way you could see what they look like. So hopefully you'll be able to see those a little bit. Okay. And so here's the last one. So this will be my last white sheet. So what I'm going to do is I want to try to do this one like slightly quickly. I'm going to do something because I want to show you guys something else. So I'll just do this one with this little thing here. And here, I'll pull these off of this. See if I can get that to stay. Okay. So for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I was saying before, which I said you couldn't do ink to paper or direct ink to paper with the black ink. So instead, I'm going to try to do it with the ink pad. I don't know if it's going to work or not, so we'll see. No, not really, because it's mostly sitting on top. So that does make sense. Okay, so keep that in mind. You can't really do direct ink to paper. But let me grab one more sponge. I do want to make sure this is clean since it's a clearly a lighter color blue. Okay, so this is Balmy Blue. And what you can do for this is you can make it really heavy on one side. So it kind of looks like you have multiple colors of ink. And this one over here, I can tell you when I was moving it back and forth, I goofed it up. So I'm not going to re-ink for this side over here. I'm going to keep this one lighter so it fades out. So it almost looks like an ombre. I'm going to go a little bit more, especially here on the end. And again, really light to the side. So let's see if this looks the way I think it's supposed to look. And I'm going to show you the last thing. Okay, so I did get a little goopy because of the way I ran, which is fine. Everything is going to be, especially when you're kind of just going on the fly. If you had a system set up and you were really being careful where you were going, probably look a little bit better. And also, this stuff does change once it's completely dry. It will look totally different as well. So let me wipe this. Take these off. These are kind of thick. Definitely a little bit thicker than window sheet. So they should be pretty good for pretty much anything you're doing. All right, so this one, what I'm going to do is, before I actually finally dry this, I'm going to spritz this one. So just for the heck of it, where are my spritzers? What I have is kind of all mixed up. And you can see, because I did put some colors into some of them. This was Frost White, but I added Call Me Clover to it because I was fooling around with it. This might be Granny Apple Green, actually. This one has a little bit of Terracotta Tile in it, mixed with... I think this was the Shimmer White as well. This one I ended up doing black. And I will tell you, black and spritzer, they kind of tend to look muddy. So I wouldn't suggest using black or a dark color. They don't look as pretty as you think they're going to turn out in your mind. Unless maybe there's a different way to do it, which once I find out what it is, I will let you know. However, I'm going to go ahead and spritz this just over the whole thing with the Terracotta Tile. I just want to back these up a little bit so none of this stuff gets wet. Okay. All right, so I'm going to hold this up pretty far because my other thing I've been doing lately is, let me dry this first, is I've been spritzing them a little too close. And I think they've been getting a little bit warped faster. This is also thick Whisper White. Don't ask me how. The rest of it was regular Whisper White, so this one is going to finish differently anyway. So I'm going to just give this a test spritz into my towel, and then I'm going to spray this. So you can see I'm probably about 6 inches up. Okay, so sometimes it will kind of reactivate the ink to make it bleed just the tiniest bit, but if you hit it with your heat tool, it'll dry and stop. I do tend to like to mix it with alcohol versus water because, number one, I always forget to empty the water and it stinks. And number two, the alcohol dries faster, so it tends not to warp your paper quite as much. Just clean this off. So this has a really, oh, can you see that on there? This has a really nice shimmer to it. It's just not easy to see. But anyway, I promise you, it does have a nice shimmer. I promise when I get the picture, I will try to shoot one so you can see it. But it has a nice shimmer to it on top of the blue. And it is just barely, and I mean barely, Terracotta Tile. You can hardly see it at all. It just gave the slightest tint to it. So that's another thing you can do with it there. So what I wanted to do was I want to show you just a couple things with this real quick with these two. So I'm going to finish these two cards here. These I will do later. This one really needs to dry, so I don't want to fool with that one at all. But what I'm going to do is finish those two, and I'm going to finish them up with something plain. So it's not really, nothing Christmassy at this point. But what I thought we could do is, this one I'm going to do a little piece of, I have the peacock foil. So this one is fairly certain. It's the Blueberry Bushel Bermuda Bay And then I'm pretty confident in saying that this is Granny Apple Green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these 3 out. And I just want to trim a piece off of each. And I'm going to run these through a die cut and put these on. And then the other one I'm actually going to do with black. Now we could either do it with black paper or black foil. So let me just cut this down. I tend to try to trim these at 4. That way I at least have like an 8-inch section left over. And if you trim it in 4s and you're going to potentially use it as a card base, that kind of works out even better. So this is 4 by 2.5. So I'm going to just trim them all the same. 4 by 2.5. 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do apologize if this runs over because this took a little bit longer to do some of these than I thought. So I'm going to do 1, 2. God, this is, I messed that one up, so we can use that for sure. Okay. So this, I'm going to do one of these on black. Actually, I might just do both of them on black just to see. So let me do that. I'm going to score these at 4 1/4, and then we would just have to put a white panel on the inside. So there's that. Let me make sure these are nice and trimmed up. That way, once we get ready to assemble, we're all good. I'm going to trim off the light side, and I'm going to make these 3 3/4 by 5. So this is a little smaller than your regular layer. So normally you would do 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm doing these at 3 3/4 by 5. So you could technically can put one other layer of something underneath of them if you want to give it a little bit of something else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the same die cut for all of these. And you will see in just 1 second. Let me just move this out of the way. Have my big shot here. I do have my magnetic cutting pad. Sorry about that. Somebody moved my thing I had out. And I'm going to do the peacock feather. All right, so I'm going to do this. One. And these actually, believe it or not, when you use the magnetic, they do cut pretty well, even on the first try. I'm going to do 2. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do 3. I'm going to do 3 black, and I'm going to give you a tip if you wanted to change it up, something else you could do if you felt like it. Daggone it. Look at that. I made myself look like a liar. Well, they normally do cut pretty well. That one might have to go to the side for now. Let me try this again. I'm going to do this one back and forth, just so it's easier. Oh, thanks, Karen. That's really nice of you. I know somebody has to have something they have to do, though, so that's why I try to make it, not make it too long. However, I am going to try to be back again on Friday, live, if you guys aren't busy. I'm not sure the time yet, but I don't have anything going on this Friday, so I'm going to try to fit in another one live. And I will be changing my day again once Rainbow Stamper goes back to school. All right, so there's 3, and then I'm going to do 3 foil. And I got to tell you, it's a little bit crazy, like, to think about it, because I keep thinking, like, oh, it's going to be so nice. I have all this free time, and I'm going to just do this once to try, because sometimes cutting foil more than once can make it a little bit too brittle. Let's see what this looks like. Sometimes what you can do with this too is you can actually cut it upside down because it'll put the impressions onto the back side of the paper better. Let's see if I get just that one. All right, so that's one. So this one I'm going to do upside down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my nicer cutting plate pad on the bottom, and I'm going to put this here like that, and then put my really funky pad on the top. But I'm gonna miss him because he's not gonna be home to like make cards with me or ask me questions anymore. Oh my gosh, look. But see, this way you can also see if you did or didn't cut all the way through before you pull your paper out. So if you thought there was a question of maybe not cutting through, you could automatically run it back through again. So I'll show you what I mean one more time. So we're just gonna put this, kind of line it up how you want it, like that, and then flip it over. And I'll push it back through before I pull it apart this time. Rainbow Stamper goes back to school the day after Labor Day. All right, so here's what I mean. So for some reason something didn't look like it was cut well, you could hold it down, and that way if you needed to put it back through, you could. But sometimes when you cut with the dies facing up, believe it or not, it does cut really, really well, which sounds, I don't know, it sounds like it wouldn't make any difference, but all right, so all I have to do is pop out just a couple of these little pieces here. There's that. So this cuts really nicely. Ooh, you do have to be careful with the thin pieces on the foil. And then we're going to just put these together. This also has a couple pieces that you might think are supposed to pop out, but they really are just kind of layers, if that makes sense. So they're technically, oh, hold on. He's actually downstairs right now building a Lego. So they're technically, this one is really, really tiny. You can see that there, but it is connected. So it almost looks like it shouldn't pop off, but there's a little middle piece here. There you go, that does. So there's that. So one other thing you could do, and I just want to tell you this, I'm not going to do this for this one, but I'll do it for another one when I put it together, is you could also layer these black ones on top of each other. So you could put more than one together, or you could even cut out white ones if you don't want to waste all your black paper. You could cut white and you could layer these together. So you could glue them together and layer them, and they're going to make a really, really thick feather, which would look pretty cool as well. So there's multiple options for layering these together. That one sec. All right, so these will be for the color, and then the only other thing we really need is some sort of a small sentiment to add to these. All right, so there's that. So I have all these cut out. Let me move all this stuff out of the way. So we have 3 black, we have the 3 foil colors, then we have our black, so this will get the foil colors. And then we have the balmy blue, which will get the 3 black feathers. And then I'm going to put both of these onto black backgrounds. But I think I might do one other thing just to like make it a little exciting. I think I might grab a piece of silver foil for each of these. So I have been trimming my silver foil up so it fits. I got these really nice 6x6 paper holders from Stampin Storage. And it fits in there much better, and I find that I use them much more often. So I'm going to trim this to 4 by 5 1/4. So if you're worried again about, you know, potentially using too much paper, you can always punch some stuff out of this before you lay it down, since it's going to just be a layer. But I don't want to make you guys wait that long, so we'll just use these as is, and I'll just get some more eventually. So there are our foil pieces. So these are going to layer behind this. You could also use glimmer paper if you wanted to. Another fun one to do instead of using this is you could use the black foil, because in case you didn't remember, that did carry over. So we do have the black foil. So that's still a perfectly good carryover item. And where in the world is, oh my goodness. gosh, sweet mother. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Did I like lose something? Because I certainly can't. I'm going to have to use one of these. I have no idea where my peacock is. My peacock. So I'm going to use We're the Best of Friends. This would also be like Birds of a Feather. Could kind of do the same thing. And then I'm going to just use Thank You for one. Just to make these easy. All right, so... Still not done my Facebook, people. Whoever it is who's calling me. Somebody's probably like, oh, she should be done. It's 10:30. All right, so I have a skinny strip. I think this one will be will be fine. Yeah, that little bit bigger, thank you. So I'm gonna just do, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do skinny on this one, and I'm gonna do this in, I'm gonna do it in balmy blue, just to keep the cohesion of the color. And I'm gonna put it on the side. We're gonna layer that together. Wow, that worked out surprisingly well. So that one's gonna go with this card. And then for this one over here, I'm gonna do Thank You. And just to have some brightness, I'm gonna do this with Bermuda Bay. Because just in case this might be a little dark for you. You're like, I don't know about that one, Rach. Oop. Cut off the T. Let's try that again. Ah, cut off the K. Now I need another piece of paper. Let me try one that's slightly bigger. Man, this is when I need my Stamparatus, apparently. But if we're being honest, I'm going to tell you one other thing. I had to take my shower door apart. Donna knows if Donna is still here. I had to take my shower door apart because our ceiling was leaking. Again, this is the second time we've had to fix it. And so I'm going to let this dry for a minute. It was the second time we had to fix it and take the whole thing apart. So my shower door is behind me. So all of my craft stuff is just like slightly pushed to the side. But I kind of didn't have an option because I was like, well, I'm not going to not craft. And since I am using foil, I am going to use Tombow liquid glue because when you're doing adhering to foil or with the glimmer paper, it sticks much better if you use the Tombow. So just as a FYI, make sure that's nicely centered. There's that. All right, and then we're going to put this on top. I'm going to go that way. So my shower door is behind me. I had to take like the doors off, those side, I guess, trays that keep the door on, the bottom tray, and it is currently airing out. I had to pull all of the caulk off, which really wasn't that hard. I did use a straight razor, however. So I'm going to put these three on, but I think what I'm going to do is, for this one, I'm going to put these three on, and then I'm going to put this across like that, because I think it'll look cute. So these I'm going to just directly adhere down. You can do this a couple different ways. You could use Tombow liquid glue. You could use the fine tip glue pen. Make sure I have the correct side that I'm putting the glue on. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just for the sake of slight quickness, I'm going to put this onto just the fine tip glue pen. I'm kind of just dotting around. You could also do this with the Tombow and a sponge. But the reason I'm doing it on the silicone mat is worst case scenario in case it leaks a little bit. Doesn't get all over the place. Put a little bit down here on the bottom. And then you're going to see my ultra high-tech technique. As I'm just going to take my finger and kind of spread it. That way I get better adhesion. And put that there. Whoops, there's one. And grab a block and I'm going to set that on there. Same thing with this one. Just kind of spread it. Oh, I want that pink on there. Put that here. So we had to actually cut a hole last year in the ceiling because it was so bad it was actually leaking onto the carpet, which is kind of how we discovered it again this year. So, oh my goodness. This has more on here than I think it does on the block. Okay, so I'm going to leave this sit for a minute. Just giving that a really hard push down. All right, so I'm going to give that a minute to sit. I do still have my sentiment here, but in the meantime, we'll put this one together. And then for this one, I will use the Tombow liquid glue. That way you can see maybe which one you prefer for those, adhering those down. But it's like you never, you know, when you're a grown-up and you have a house, just never know what fun awaits you. Come in the house and you're like, why's the carpet wet in that spot? There's nothing there that should be leaking. But it's okay. And this is, remember, the one that we flipped over because the other side was ugly. So we were still kind of able to save that one. And I do think that if you were able to cut some more of these and adhere them together, I think they would look really nice because it would give a lot of height to them if you stack them together. So for this one, I'm going to do the same, except I'm going to do the liquid glue here. So again, I'm just kind of putting dots on this one. A little bit up top here. Just like that. And then I'm going to slide this over. And I'm just going to do the same thing again with my finger. Oops, just be gentle with these because this foil is very breakable. And this did get glue on the other side because I was a little sloppy. I can tell you that this definitely will stick down better because the Tombow is really great for adhering anything down, virtually anything, which is why I really like using it for the foil. So there's that. All right, this needs to be cleaned off. Grab one more baby wipe. See if I can decontaminate my fingers. And also, remember too, some of these you may not like. Because there's things that I do that I don't like. Trust me. I'm sure everybody has those cards where you're kind of like, wow, I should have changed. If I had the chance, I would have changed that. And I think that myself quite often. So believe me, if you don't like all of my cards, I don't take any of it personally. So now I'm going to just trying to make sure I have slightly clean hands. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just trim this off with my trimmer. I'm going to cut this down just a little bit. I'm going to go with making it an inch. I think that should be good. And then I will just flag the end of that. The other one I'm also going to adhere, but I'm going to make sure that that other stuff is dry first. So I'm just nipping in the center there. Trying not to get my goopy fingers all over it. I'll pop this up with some dimensionals. That's a little bit much with the dimensionals, but you have to commit. Once you've over-dimensionaled, you got to commit to it. This probably could have been just a teeny bit smaller. That way you could have seen the feather trails down there. So maybe if I were doing this again, I would cut my sentiment a little bit smaller, but still not bad for something we were fooling around with and I didn't really have a plan for. All right. Oops. All right. So this one clearly did not want to stay. So let me grab this back out. I'm going to put a little bit of Tombow on here. I had a feeling I was going to have to do that with this one. And we'll add him back. on. And the Tombow, the good part about the Tombow is even with the black, it does dry clear. So once it's on there, it will dry clear and you won't have to worry about the fact of seeing white. This clearly likes my fingers much more than it likes the actual card. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this so it goes all the way across. So I'm going to trim this to 5 1/4. And then again, just remember when you do black cards, you have to make sure you put a layer on the inside or nobody's going to be able to see what you wrote. And I'm going to just put this down. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to do the liquid glue. That way I can kind of straighten it. And if you really want to get technical, you could even pull out, try to pull it out without causing a catastrophe. You could pull out your T-square ruler so it'll go straight across. Unless it's crooked. Like mine, then it's not going to make a bit of a difference. That still looks pretty good. Bring it down just a smidge. But the good part about using the liquid glue is you can adjust it if you need to. So if you decide you don't really like it where it is and you want to pull it down a little bit, you could totally do that. Still laughing at myself here because I have all this tape all over me. But anyway, so there are at least 2 of the finished cards. I know we didn't finish any of the rest of them, but that is 2. Those are 2 things I at least wanted to be able to show with having the black and the bright. This one you could certainly do way brighter if you wanted to. That's completely up to you. And then we still have this one to mess with. Again, this one was a clear emboss resist, and then we used the gold Delicata ink. And then this one is still not dry because the little things are sticking to my fingers, but we did an ink background. We moved it down just a smidge. We added some gray tinted embossing paste and then put some of that Stampin' ice on top of it. So definitely 4 different things you could do. What I should have done if I was thinking ahead of time instead of doing the gold to stick with the theme is I could have done silver for this because I think it would have stuck with our silver shiny theme a little bit better. But you know, that's what happens when you don't plan stuff ahead of time and you fly by the seat of your pants. So, thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you at least have learned something new with this whole foray into exploring that I did today. One other thing to note, make sure that you're very careful if you have paper snips and you have a hard floor. When I went to my stamp club the other day, which is at my great friend Rhonda's house, I accidentally dropped my paper snips onto her very hard tile floor and it totally bent the ends of them, so I can't use them anymore. I can cut really great delicate designs now with these scissors. But you have to always make sure you're careful with your scissors when you're out and about. I thought, my goodness, of all things I did. So, oh well. Live and learn, right? So I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching. Thanks for all the words that you left, the comments. I know I did not draw my paper pumpkin winner, but I will go downstairs, I will draw it, and I will post it, and I will draw a second winner for some sort of other prize, because Lord knows I have a lot of stuff here to be able to share. So let me know what you guys think of these cards. I have a little piece here that doesn't belong. I would love to know what you all try with them. You are welcome to, if you all create cards, you're welcome to post them to my page. I am happy to have people share their creations. Just make sure that if you did make a card and you shared it, that somehow you put your name on there. That way if people see it and they want to recreate it, or they see it and they really like it and they want to know who did it, that they can see who made it or ask you a question about it or whatever. So thank you very much, Janet. I appreciate it. Don't worry, everything will be fine. We do have a backup shower, so it's not like it's that bad, but it's just annoying when the ceiling keeps leaking. But thank you all so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you guys again real soon.